Thank you very much, Administrator McCarthy, for being here. And I want to make a point that actually is not directly on your budget, but I think it bears repeating because I've heard this from a number of administration officials when they come in to present their budgets in front of the various subcommittees. And I don't think you'd find any of us up here that disagree with the idea. We'd all love to get rid of sequester. I don't know a appropriator that would not like to do that. But it is the law of the land, and it is a law that the Congress passed, that the president signed. And frankly, if you go back and read Bob Woodward's book, if I recall, the Price of Politics, the sequester was actually an administration, a presidential idea and suggestion in that negotiation. So it's not going to be wished away. And with all due respect to the president, the various mechanisms that he's proposing in his budget to provide additional money aren't going to pass the Congress, and he knows that when he put them in there. I don't know if we'll do this again, but in the past, when we've put the president's budget up on the floor, most Democrats have not voted for it. And if most Democrats won't vote for it, most Republicans don't. And I just say this, that I think where we're headed is the default position here is the law. It's the Budget Control Act. And so any budget that isn't based on that, or if there's not a negotiation going on to alter that, to me is not likely to reflect reality. And I think it's going to put you in a difficult spot as an administrator. I think it puts the public in a difficult spot because it looks more like a political document than a real budget. And so I think we're playing with a house of cards here that's going to collapse pretty quickly. And because we're making requests that there's not the money there, and absent a change in the law, I think you're going to be basically where you were in the last budget cycle. Having said that, and I say that again, not directed at you, it's just something I'm routinely saying to people so that maybe we actually get that negotiation in some realistic format. We did do a Ryan Murray deal a couple years ago, which I think was a very good deal, and the two sides can work together, but at some point that's got to start. My guess is it won't start until after we go through the appropriations process, so we will actually be living within the law. I do want to thank you personally for working with us to get a permanent lab director at Kerr Labs in Oklahoma. Your department was extremely helpful in making that happen, and we are very pleased with the director that you chose and sent down there. Absolutely, and the staff there is a terrific staff, and it has the most active alumni association of any federal facility I've ever seen, because they really, people that retire continue to take a deep interest in the groundwater work and the literally world-class scientific work on water quality that goes on. So thank you. And to that point, I'd like you to perhaps, this might help the rest of the committee, I sort of got familiar with the Title 42 hiring in this process and what an important tool that was for you in being able to get us the kind of director that we needed. So is that a tool that you use elsewhere?
It is a tool that we use at our Office of Research and Development, which oversees our labs as well. It just provides us an opportunity to more effectively compete to get the world-class scientists that we need working in the agency in these vital positions. It's been authorized for an additional 5 years. We only use it when we need to because we understand that we're all budget constrained, but I couldn't be more pleased that we've been able to fill that position and with somebody with the credibility that we see. And really, without that opportunity, it would have been extraordinarily difficult. Public service is wonderful. Lucrative is not part of the wonderful.
Well, yeah, I'm sure you know that from firsthand experience. Tell me a little bit, we had a flap last year that I think, depending on how many rural fire districts you have in your district, became a considerable concern. And there was a temporary suspension of military surplus vehicles. And what was going to rural fire departments? And these are, again, self-supporting entities that really do great work. We've had a great relationship with the military providing vehicles. I know the EPA had some concerns. Can you tell us where we're at today?
Yeah, we have resolved that issue, and thank you for raising it. I think it was raised quickly enough that we realized what the concern was, and we were able to address it very quickly. It had to do with a Clean Air Act obligation for vehicles or engines, and I don't remember exactly how we fixed it. All I remember is when it got raised, everybody said, we have to fix this. And so I
Well-
appreciate it very much.
Well, and you did, so thank you for backing on. There was some concern that the vehicles were not environmentally safe, and so thanks for backing off that pretty quickly. I'm also very interested, you mentioned some of the things you're interested in doing with tribes, and a number of us up here, and Mr. Simpson, I know in particular, when he was chairman of Interior, we've been to reservations and seen some of the infrastructure problems they have in terms of clean water and water distribution systems. So I'd like to know what you're planning to do in your budget and what you think is necessary. A lot of these are, as you know, very remote locations with very inadequate infrastructure. There's been very little federal investment, and obviously, in many cases, these are very poor tribes. They don't have funds of their own.
Yeah, and thank you for recognizing that. We've been working very hard with the tribes to make sure that the money that they can use for infrastructure purposes is increased. We're looking at a $96 million increase under our tribal GAP program of, I'm sorry, $96 million this year, which is a $31 million increase over what was enacted in 2015. You know, we're trying to also make sure that we're bolstering the ability for tribes to deal with some of their solid waste issues. We've proposed a $3 million in extramural funds just to make sure they have some core services that the rest of us sort of take for granted, and they need some help there. We also are working within Puget Sound to dedicate some additional resources to the tribes to allow them to keep participating in that effort and to benefit from the cleanups that are essential for Puget Sound, and that will also ensure that we meet our trust responsibility to the tribes. And we also have some set-asides under the Drinking Water Fund, where we're making sure that $20 million, or 2% of the appropriated funds, are set aside for Indian tribes and Alaskan Native villages. They have unique and critical needs that we need to fund.
Well, I appreciate that. Last question in this regard, and I'll yield back. Just could you enlighten me or enlighten us a little bit? How do you prioritize these requests? I mean, we know the needs are always going to be greater than the dollars you have. So when you're looking at, a reservation on an Indian, a reservoir, on an Indian reservation or a water infrastructure, how do you make those choices?
Well, we have to actually set it up as a competitive process where we describe the criteria. We even take comment and publicly put those out. The challenge for dealing with tribes and Alaskan Native villages is their ability to be able to compete effectively, given their limited, resources, to be able to hire consultants and do the work, which is why both in the funds that I've recognized, but also in the Clean Water Revolving Fund, the SRFs. We do set aside, so they're competing against each other.
Right.
We can help them and provide them technical assistance.
That's
but
what I was
the
gonna
criteria
ask.
is publicly available. It's discussed. There's nothing that doesn't make this a totally competitive process. But we do set asides for the tribes. It's appropriate. It's necessary to do that. And it's provided them opportunities to compete effectively against one another for what's the highest priority items that we can take care of. But it also gives us a sense of what the needs are in the tribes and what we might want to request in the next year, which is why I think it's important for these funds to go through, so we continue with our commitment to the tribes to get them under the standard of living that the vast majority of people in this country enjoy.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for your efforts in that regard. And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Cole.